in Fells Point, Baltimore, we converted an old police station where the roof was caving in. We converted an old school in Washington. We converted a lot of mansions in Parkside. So we've done a lot of work with historic buildings in various degrees of that condition.
Okay. Is it going to be low income because Maple Village is not? Is that the idea?
Maple Village is also affordable housing too. Same program. Affordable housing, it's rent restricted, not rent subsidized.
Thank you. And this is, I'm not sure whether it's a question or a statement, but it says, I am a senior and my concern is security factors in such a lousy neighborhood. The 14th is nearby, but even during the day, how can I feel safe in an area filled with drugs right in Vernon Park? Thank you. Someone, is there any answer to that? Okay. But that's a concern. Okay.
Well, I can say that we've been working very closely with the 14th Police District to clean up Vernon Park. And as I said earlier, we've been trying to bring back activities. When you bring back activities, you get rid of some of the element that's hanging out, doing all sorts of things. Pretty much every time I drive past Germantown and Shelton, I'm on speed dial with Captain Fleming and asking him to send someone out, address this issue. So they're very much aware of it. We are trying to be strategic about what we're doing on Germantown and Shelton in regards to safety. And so there are other things that we're working on I don't want to go into right now. But we have been very much making an investment and continuing to work on that problem.
This next question, Councilwoman Beth, you might keep that microphone because this next question is yours.
Sure.
So does this project's fate depend on Councilwoman Beth's opinion of it? And what kind of role does the community really have from your
The community
perspective?
has a huge role. So every community I go to, not Germantown, not just here or Mount Airy or Chestnut Hill or wherever, I represent 150,000 people. And I go from the top of Chestnut Hill over to Feltonville, it's second in the boulevard, and down to Broad and Lehigh, and then back up to 66 and Broad. And in every one of those neighborhoods, I tell people, you don't have to have things in your community that you don't want. And I make decisions based on what the community is interested in. And so my interest is in the long-term viability of this commercial corridor. And that's what I want to hear from you. I want to hear what it is that you think is the best use for that land. And not just that land, but what do you want to see on Germantown and Shelton, on that corridor? And so, we all have our own ideas. I have my own ideas, but it's most important that I hear from you because I think for too long, decisions have been made in Germantown based on political interest and based on personal interest and not based on the community's interest. And so it matters. It matters.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next question. What is the participation from contractors within the community and what is the bidding process?
So for any project that the redevelopment authority is involved with that is over $250,000, which this would be, we require an equal opportunity plan, which includes minority participation, which generally is in the range of 18 minority participation for disability and 4% women and 3% disability.
Thank you. Now, we're soon going to get underway with the questions, but this came from someone in the audience, and this is a question that I don't know is a now answer or what, but the question is, how many people in this room like the current proposal? I do. So, I mean, if people want to raise their hand, I see some people raising their hand that I do. But I guess we'll get back to that later, and I'm turning the microphone to, somebody raised 2 hands. But I'm handing the mic back over to Garland now so we can go on with the questions. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that everyone's questions are addressed. There were a couple that were repeats that we're not going to ask. This one's not very clear. It says, is it going to be low income because Maple Village is not? Okay. And what kind of retail operators will take place in the building?
No commercial. No commercial.
Okay, so we're going to open up the floor, and if you can just be respectful when you go up to the floor and ask a question. And if your question wasn't clearly stated in here, and you want to get up and speak about what you asked, please get in line to do that. We ask that you don't take very long because there's lots of people who would like to have their say. And then if your question is pointed or directed at a specific agency or organization, it would be good to state that at the beginning so the right person could be able to answer the question. Or if you just want to make a statement about how you feel about tonight's proposal or what you would like to see on the corridor, there's an opportunity to do that as well.
Not to speak out of turn, but I did have a question that wasn't answered on the particular part.
Come over here. Come over in line.
I'll just speak loudly. So I don't think that
Sir, we are already in line. Come in line.
Oh, which question is it? What was your question about? Well, I'll ask it.
again, I think that the question was with respect to how does the project, help move the community into the 21st century. I think it's a valid question that was sort of skipped over because conversations that folks have been having is in an aging community, there's a gap between more development for an aging community as opposed to bringing in and maybe add some youth to the community as well. So how does this project bring some youth into an aging community as well? Because it's a valid question.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the clarification. That question was asked, we just didn't have anyone to answer. So it was more of a question in terms of for the community as a whole, how do we move forward on that?
Okay.
You reason your question was not answered? What was your question?
There are YWCAs, YMCAs in North Philadelphia and in Durham. Why can't we have a returning YWCA in Germantown?
No money.
I can't answer that question.
I don't think anybody can answer that question.
Maybe I could, as a board member of the Germantown Life Enrichment Center, also once known as the Germantown Men's Christian Association. Okay, we have a Y, if you think of that type of, it's still open. It has a pool. It has a pool that's bigger than the former women's one. But that's answering that question. But I'm actually speaking in that role because right across the other side of the park is an institution that's very much like that. That building is no longer going to be a Y. It's not going to come back as a community center. It's not going to be a place for children's programming. It's going to, the proposal is for housing, is for small apartments. That's fine. There's another institution on the other side which can fulfill those needs. It's underutilized, frankly, and it could be better utilized as a community. Okay. I'm not asking a question. I think we were asked to make statements or questions, and so I'm making a statement. Frankly, I think it's a good proposal for the community where we are, the growth in the community, the aging nature of the community. I'm in that bucket. I think a lot of people in this room are in that over 60 bucket. And it's not a single residence, it's which we have at the Old Men's Ward, the Germantown Life Enrichment Center. We have a single residence for low-income men, which was built with subsidized dollars. So we know exactly what that's like. This is apartments, which at some point in the future, as I said, after the subsidies and the tax credits sunset after 15 years could become something else. In the meantime, the building could be saved. And I think that's paramount. And I think it's a good proposal. I think it fits. I think the fact that there's retail next to it, it seems to me like a solid proposal. I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Chester H. Green, President and founder of the Shoe and Belfield Neighborhood Association. I'm happy to be here. But I'd like to bring you back to the beginning. And I'd like to make a statement that if the building should be demolished and something else be built there, I want to see something showing as a mirror of something in the past, what it was and what it is now. Because this way all age groups can come back and reminisce by seeing something and tell them this, as someone said earlier, was to start out with discrimination, then it moved from that, immigrated. We need to show our generation of young people what came before them, where they are and where they can go. If we stop just building buildings and don't show them this, we lose the purpose of us existing. And I'd like to say again, add on this. I love your proposal, but I want to see the whole picture. I want to see who else is out there. I want to know what their flavor is about. That's all I'm saying is that let's not close the door too fast and miss out on something that could really open all our eyes. And lastly, but not least, thank you all for having me here. Thank you, Councilwoman, because what you said earlier, I support 100%. And I say to you all, don't close the door fast. We seniors need a place, because I'm way senior. But I'm saying this, I don't know what the future may hold. Maybe later on, Chester Hill might open up a senior citizen's place. See, I'm looking far, right? Thank you. Things can change. So like I say, keep the door open. All things are possible if we come together and reason.
My name is Jihad Ali. I'm against this proposal because if you listen to what was said, this is fast track. This consists of a developer who is also an elected or an appointed official of the city board. So the issue about transparency, we need to look at that. I think that maybe, Councilwoman, we can have a public hearing to see how this all happened. Because at the end of the day, we elected you. The developer, who's also a member of a board, he's appointed. How they're getting by this conflict of interest to be a developer, his entire history is redevelopment, and to be handling city resources, it just seems borderline questionable. So I would ask that you contact the ethics department and get a ruling on this.
I'd like to thank the organizers of this meeting. I think it's absolutely wonderful that they did this. There wouldn't have been an opportunity for us. Thank you. And I'd also like to thank Cindy Bass for standing up there and saying, I want to hear what you want. And I very much appreciate that. And clearly there are many different opinions in this room, but I think some of them are sound, and some of them are wishful, and some of them are terrific. I come at this from 3 different places. Pardon me? I'm Loretta Witt. I live in Southwest Germantown, and I've lived in Southwest Germantown for more than 40 years. Southwest! But that's 40 years of getting to know a fabulous community. And it is a place where we raised our children. Couldn't be more proud to know that they go out there and they say, I'm from Germantown. And it's wonderful that they say that and they're proud of it. That being said, I also know more than 40 years worth of seeing deterioration of buildings, deterioration of institutions, hopelessness on the part of a lot of people, and sinking into poverty. Germantown has 23% of its residents living under the federal poverty guidelines. That is equal to the city of Philadelphia. And we have to think about that in terms of what use can be made of the buildings in Germantown. The second way I come at this is as a person who has loved the history of Germantown. So the fact that we're dealing with what I consider an historic building is extremely important. And it's important to its development and how we look at how it should be developed. It's important to our as the pastor said, we should remember what happened here. It's just as Germantown as a community has followed the history of the United States of America and all the trends that have taken place since its founding. This is also a story, whether it's through the Y, originally segregated, finally integrated, and a success story. We need to remember that. Should that be making it another Y? Should that be making it a community center? Should that be perhaps preserving those memories and allowing people to reminisce in having a small museum in the front of it, in an entryway, and remembering those things that are important to us? I don't know, but that's something to think about. And the third way I come at this is because I'm a realtor. And I know from selling properties all across the city, especially in the northwest part of Philadelphia for 32 years, I know that this sort of proposal that's on the books right now, it's not on the books unfortunately, but this sort of proposal that has been made at this point is one of the few ways that we can get this building restored. If there were 12 proposals made, 12 RFPs, and if 12 people came to think about making an RFP and only one group made that proposal, you know how difficult this process is. You know how difficult it will be to bring that building together again. And that's why I appreciate the fact that Mission Housing came forward. I Googled Mission Housing. If you Google Mission Housing, you find out that they're one of the premier developers in the nation. God, for Germantown, fantastic. They did Parkside. They can probably tell you, and I wish they already had, what other things they've done in Philadelphia.
Wow. I mean, she must be on this team, because how much time is she going to have to give unsupported testimony?
Excuse me, one person is talking.
Can she?
I'm sorry.
No, well, there's other people in line.
I'm sorry, it's taking too long. So
Excuse me,
the last
please
thing I'll say is
be
this.
respectful. Thank you.
I'll finish.
I agree, we have to make sure we move it along, but please be respectful of the speakers.
I'll finish and just by saying one thing, and I'll say this to you, Cindy. As a realtor, I have learned that the first offer is often the best offer. There you go.
Thank you.
I have a real estate background too, so I disagree with that. But I do want to say, just as a matter of clarity, that I know that there are a number of people who came out and saw the location and only one proposal that was presented. But that's why one of the things we're doing is going back, because really anybody can take a look at the building. So we're being very selective about making sure that we're reaching out to people who can actually do a deal. Not just anybody, but people who can actually make this thing happen, who have a track record and who have a history. So I just want to say that.
Yes, my name is Craig Buckner. I'm also a minister too. Thank you, Cindy, for coming out. Councilwoman Cindy. One of the things I want to add to this will be for the developers. For minority participation, for so many years, you had qualified people that can participate on the job, put in the paperwork, and ask for the job. They say, okay, we might use you, and all y'all have to do is solicit to us and put our name on a piece of paper and go on about your business. What watchdog are we going to use to what watchdog are we going to use to protect the minority participation?
It's a good question. I mean, one of there's two things that sort of govern what would happen at the site. One is that we would be governed by prevailing wage and Davis-Bacon rules at the site. So we would have it'd be a union development. And secondly, we would, as Brian indicated, we would be monitored by the redevelopment authority in terms of minority participation. And it's a very important concern that Mr. Buckner raised.
Thank you. Ingrid, give your name.
My name is Ingrid Shepard, and I have
have a two-part question. The first part is, how come nothing has been done to safeguard this building for all these years? And the two, it seems as if the process now to currently save the building is directly tied to this project. Why aren't they two separate issues?
What was the second question? Did they get the second question?
Brian.
Got it. Okay.
So on the building itself and the state and the condition that it's in currently, it's in deplorable condition, and I don't have a reason why the previous owner allowed that condition to move forward except for financial straits. Again, we know what happened with Germantown settlement. It is defunct and no longer operating. We took ownership in 2013, and while certainly our ownership is not perfect, I admit that it's not perfect, but we have secured the building better than it had been in years, in the sense that we are not having the same type of vandalism or break-ins that we had at one time. Again, not to say it's perfect. I know there are issues there, and I recognize those issues, and we're continuing to do what we can to address those issues as they come up, as we hear from 311, as we hear from Center in the Park. I hope we've been more responsive than the previous owner, and that things have gotten better over the last 2 years, although certainly not good. As far as the separation of the two issues, I think you're right. I think the two issues are very separate. And I think there is the stability of the building. I think the councilman actually talked to this. There's the stability of the building, and then there's the development proposal. And I think the challenge that we have as owners is trying to separate those two and really facing the fiscal realities of the stabilization of the building and figuring out what exactly that is. And that is exactly what I think part of what tonight is to, I'm going to be very honest about kind of my concerns about the building, my fiscal situation, and what our next steps are. I'm not one to pull punches. That doesn't mean you're going to like the answers, but I'm not one to pull punches. And I want to save the building. I want to do everything I can to save the building. It doesn't change the fact that as a public official, I have to be concerned about public safety, and I also have to be concerned about how we spend tax dollars.
How long do we have to wait?
For the decision?
On stabilizing the building.
On stabilizing the building, I don't know if I have the fiscal resources to stabilize the building.
You have the responsibility.
I do have the responsibility, Mr. Lee, and I will make sure, I will do everything in my power to make sure that building is safe and the conditions corrected. I cannot guarantee, and I will not say to anyone in this room, I will not promise to stabilize the building because I can't afford to.
How much will it cost?
Over $3 million.
Just wanted to get the questions out in case.
Hi, my name is Pamela Meredith, and I'm from the Haines Street Community Organization, which is an organization derived of those of us born and raised in Germantown. And my question is family, youth. How do we bridge the youth and our seniors together? Family is the core of our community, and that's what we're trying to strengthen. How will we do that? That's what I would like to see in that space.
My name is Jim Foster, born here 72 years ago, still here. I am the publisher of Germantown newspapers and past president of the Germantown YWCA. Leaping from that, Connie Belay took part of my thunder because the point I was going to make is the fact that if the YWCA was lost, the YMCA is open to everyone. And the opportunities there are significant. The board that I was president of was the rescue board that opened a closed YMCA that everybody in Germantown said would never be reopened. Now, it was reopened because aggressive community members, 10 of them, came to every meeting every 2 weeks for 3 years. And we forced it back open again when the political system didn't care. Now we have a situation here where the YWCA has been neglected grossly by the political system, and maybe it isn't savable, practically savable. But I want to fill in a few blanks and make a couple points off of what Mr. Abernathy has talked about. The city of Philadelphia owes Germantown a significant amount of money for what happened there. Not this claim that, oh, we can't do it. It was the city of Philadelphia, not a bank, that put up $1.5 million for the mortgage in 2005 and never got one payment. They never foreclosed on the property for 8 years. Let it languish, but they were the mortgage holder. They're the responsible party. The fact that they let it get vandalized, let it get broken into, let it catch on fire is their fault. Nobody else's. The corporation that bought it, Germantown Settlement, filed bankruptcy. But the point I'm making is, when the city says we can't find money to do something vital there, whether it's saving that or building an equal quality replacement that does what the community needs, they better rethink that subject. And I think the folks in this room and others should hold the city accountable for the fact that that situation is as deplorable as it is today. Pardon me, I will go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And folks, I just want to remind folks that we have to be careful of the time so that everyone gets a chance to have their say. I don't want anyone to leave this meeting and said they didn't get a chance to talk. So if you want to have a say, please stand up and get an opportunity to speak on the mic. Please try to limit your discussion or your question to not more than a minute so that other folks can have an opportunity. Thank you.
Greg Palmier, 47-year resident.
Sorry, I actually think you're absolutely right. I think the city does have a responsibility to this building. I can't speak to what was done in 2005 because I wasn't there. I can speak to what my actions have been since I've been executive director. I took responsibility for taking that building against my staff wishes. And I have every intention to do everything I can right by this community and by that building. That's what I feel like is my job. Look, the authority historically has acted poorly across the city. We've treated a whole host of folks badly. And part of my job, I believe, is to try and figure out how to correct some of those problems. I'm not going to be able to fix everything. I don't have bottomless pit of money. But I will try to be as responsible and as accountable as possible. And if that building ever gets demolished, I do expect to be held accountable. This is not Councilwoman Bass's problem. This is Brian Abernathy and the Redevelopment Authority's problem. And we're going to do everything we can to fix it. But I am not going to sit here and promise you something I can't keep.
But Eric Gillison and residents didn't mind giving up the money, so
Excuse us.
Well, and to be fair, this was the previous administration, so it was not Eric Gillison or me.
We're talking about the administration now.
Excuse us, no calling out, please.
Greg Palmier, 47-year resident of Germantown, been renovating abandoned houses for 30 years in this community. I want to talk about the importance of time. Time is of the essence with this building. This building has sat vacant since my wife served on the last board, since I myself held the heater together, cleaned the roof gutters to make sure that it didn't get rain into it, okay? I want to say that because for a long time, many neighbors in Germantown struggled hard to keep this building afloat. We now have an opportunity for one of our very own neighbors, who happens to be a developer, who happens to have a large investment in Northwest Philadelphia, to renovate this building along with another important organization, to turn it into housing for senior citizens that is very much needed in our community. It brings not only seniors the housing they need, but it brings the income that Germantown Avenue and Shelton Avenue needs in order to become the thriving marketplace that at one time was. And I think people need to look at it. It also brings an opportunity, if we're able to move fast enough, and I go back to time of the essence, the opportunity for employment of people in our community. And I would ask Ken and his partner, and I know they have in the past, will they continue to consider employing neighborhood contractors who are qualified to help bring this building back to life? Because I think that is as important as anything else that this building that has brought us all together for so many years, as it did myself, teaching me to swim and helping me bring my family up in Germantown, it could be the very building, just like the other abandoned buildings in Germantown have been, in my business, in my profession, a way to employ people in our community. So I would just ask Ken, would he consider, as I think he has in the past, using neighborhood contractors from this community, a community he lives in, to do that? That's why I'm asking, will he do that? And,
Thank you.
And I would just simply ask him that question.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Angela Miles, and I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time. I've been working with the Friends of Vernon Park for going on 4 years. We have some members in the room tonight, and I want to speak to the strength of coalition forming for community groups and organizations. It's very important that we all recognize that programming for residents of Germantown, whether they be kids after school, pre-K, or our older residents, that it's not because of the building that these things can become possible. It's about people, it's about neighbors, it's about uniting around issues that you care about. And everyone is here because they care. The work that's going to happen in Vernon Park this spring is wonderful. There are going to be some resources available soon to show you what it's going to be, but it's going to be safer. There's going to be a new playground. The lighting plan is fantastic. There's not going to be spots where you don't know what's around the corner. And I really look forward to that. This work wouldn't have been possible without a combination of different groups working together. When I first moved to Germantown in 2011, I was aware of the political nature of different groups, and the idea that scarcity exists is a myth. There are so many spaces here, there are so many people here. If we can form a coalition together around certain issues, the most simple ones are being good neighbors to one another, we can get a lot of work done. So it's not just about one building or one park or one space, but if you want to get involved, there are countless ways to do so. And I'm not on the Living in Germantown Facebook page. I don't have a Facebook account myself, but do it for Vernon Park. But I know there's a lot of talk on there, and I know that there's a lot of inflammatory language. And I would just like to remind everyone, it's so important to come outside. And this summer, we invite everyone to come outside and play and picnic and hang out in Vernon Park. And I think you're going to be really happy about this, emerald in the middle of the city. So I want to thank Cindy Bass, I want to thank PHS, I want to thank the community development organizations, our partners, Germantown Life Enrichment Center, Center in the Park, and just remind everyone that with coalitions, we can come together around the values that are most important and figure out where in the community we can get things done. There's not just one spot for everything. So thank you for your time.
Good evening, my dragon boys.
Give your name.
My name is Tyler Barnes. I'm from EDGE, Community Development Group.
Come on down.
Number one, I would like to thank Councilwoman, because I hate when they say Barack. Give her the respect. So give her the respect that she's due. Councilwoman Cindy Bass for inviting us and inviting the community into this discussion, because, like she said earlier, we're always out of the discussion. And in reference to, I'm going to speak from a minority standpoint, we're not included. I'm glad you said yes to this new project, but we're not included. And this neighborhood is predominantly black, predominantly minorities, so we need to be included. I had a question up there that didn't ask, wonder why. I just think the fix is in. But why can't it be a why? Then when the young lady came up and said, it's not going to be a why. So my question is the fix in? Is this done already? Because how can she say it's not going to be a why? Forget about it being a why. We have a proposal for housing. So if we're going to be transparent, let's just be transparent. So again, I want to thank Councilwoman Cindy Bass for bringing us into the conversation. And excuse me? That's her opinion. Okay, well, that's my opinion of the 50 things.
Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Fred Kapp. I'm a Germantown resident, was raised here my entire life. I just have two quick questions, and I'll take them off the answers off the mic. The first one is for Mission First. You briefly mentioned the rooftop garden. I'm curious whether or not that's something that's a definite part of the plans, and whether that's something that the community would ever have access to. And then my second question is for Mr. Abernathy. I'm curious why the RFP proposal time period was so short. I think a couple months, given any of the difficulties with the building and issues with the surrounding neighborhood. I would wonder if it should have been a little bit longer. And secondly, if the L&I report comes back that the building is not imminently dangerous, whether or not you would commit to opening up the proposal process again and for a somewhat of a longer time period.
With the rooftop garden, it's the same sort of rules with that as with the community space. It would be open to the community on a reservation basis if it's not used by the residents. It is a part of the plan. We think it's important to open up and kind of link it to the park and the like.
So the timeline of the RFP is pretty standard. 60 days to turn around plans and schematics, financing, and essentially concept is not uncommon for the redevelopment authority, not for this site or for any other. We did actually extend this site or this development by 2 weeks from the original, because we did want to, which isn't a whole lot of time, I admit it, but that was to answer specific questions that were raised. But again, we have not had any issues with other RFPs issued for 60 days for, quite honestly, more very complex and large projects. And I think, Mark, you guys have responded to some of that stuff in the past. So that's the first question. As far as committing to opening an RFP process, I want to see what L&I says, and I want to have a conversation with the council. My decision isn't word, and neither is the council. I consider her my partner, and I think we will continue to move forward. I trust her opinion in Germantown. She knows this community better than I do, and I will continue to work with her. And if we decide together to issue an RFP, this RFP was crafted with her staff, and we would craft a new RFP with her staff. And so, council has to be my partner, and hopefully she feels the same way about us. Can I commit tonight? No, but I think it's certainly worthy of a conversation, and I'm certainly would like to move forward fairly quickly with something.
Hi, my name is Emily Doley. I live in Southwest Germantown with my sister Anya. We do a lot of community work in the Lee Junction area. My comment, I have more of a comment than a question or even an opinion about this development, and it has to do with process. And I don't think that we're really going to succeed with changing how things are done in Germantown and revitalizing this neighborhood if we don't do something about the process and involving the community. Because there was a tremendous amount of information shared at this meeting that people knew about. And people had to drag themselves here to come and hear about it for the first time. I mean, people have been talking about redeveloping this building and this corridor for quite some time, but the public, the greater public, this broader public that's here tonight, is really not privy to those conversations. And that's a real problem. That's why people don't trust each other. That's why they don't trust developers sometimes. And if we don't fix that, we're always going to be having these arguments. And people are going to be shocked and afraid when we hear big news like this, that a building might be demolished when did that come about? It almost seems out of the blue. And we really just can't continue down that path. And the people who are going to participate in changing that really is everyone who's in this room. It is our elected officials. It is our political leaders. It's the leaders of the stakeholders in Germantown. other community development corporations, the RCOs, everybody. I keep going back to Homeland Security's tagline. If you see something, say something. We really, really, really have to share information in this neighborhood if we're going to become a more informed citizenry and really participate in the redevelopment of this neighborhood that we call home. Thank you.
Give your name. Thank you. Thank you. First off, my name is Mark Tucker. I grew up here in the Philadelphia area. Matter of fact, I'm fortunate to have married a young lady who actually learned to swim at that YWCA. And she actually told me, she says, I can't come tonight, but I need you to come. And I also grew up here, so I've been here 57 years, and I love it. It's my area, Germantown. With that said, I think one of the things that we really don't do and don't do well, and I know Councilwoman Bass and I've had a couple of discussions about this, is we look at one building, and that building, we want to work on that one building, and it's going to change the corridor. And it doesn't work that way. If we go to other areas across the city of Philadelphia, and I just was fortunate enough to take my daughter up to Brooklyn and pay $3,600 for an apartment, and it's not half as good as this building. And why is that going on in Brooklyn? Because there is a plan. There is a plan that's being orchestrated with the developers, private-public partnerships, with the minority suppliers in the area. It all takes a plan. So I think one of the things, and I'll challenge the RDA, and I think you can do whatever you want. You got the person sitting right here who can help us make those decisions. You can do whatever you want. I know a little bit about the RDA. So with that said, I think it would be very, very helpful for this process to help fund a program that we can look at the whole corridor. And even if we take a snapshot and say, all right, we've now done a good job up in your area, the Mount Airy, semi-Chestnut Hill area, but we have a corridor here that used to be Ralph's and Allen's. How about Philaticus? Does anyone remember Philaticus? Philaticus was an Italian restaurant right on Germantown Avenue. It was a great Italian restaurant. So we need to look at it in total and not just one piece. And if we do that, then we possibly can have this great, basically this senior citizen center. That may be the best use for that, but it may not be. I also coach here in the city of Philadelphia, and I remember as a kid, there was probably 5 or 6 places that I could go on a Saturday morning and play, outside and inside. One of them was the YMCA, and the other was the YWCA. And now it's not there. So where do the kids go? Where? My point is, I understand, and I've been to that facility and I support that facility, but it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be another facility. I mean, 10 years ago, they said, or 15 years ago, the Kroc Center. How many people use the Kroc Center? If you haven't, go down there and check it out. Well, there's no reason why we can't have something like that in this area again, but we have to fund it. We have to go through the study, and I'm sure, and I trust in Councilwoman Bass, she'll take us through that process. I do push back with, I'm not done yet. As I understand, the RDA though, the RDA, people speak, man. I'm fine. The RDA has to have the willingness to work with us so we make the right decisions long term, not short term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give us your name.
Let's see. My name is Inez Love. I am the Community Director for Faith Community Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit arm for Faith Chapel Church. I am going to tell you all a secret that I've really never told anyone. I've been in this community for 60 years. I've lived in Germantown for 60 years. So I know what's going on in Germantown. I know what's going on in most of the communities around here. My home is on Christ Street, which is a few blocks from this, the Y. I couldn't use the Y when I was younger. My skin color was not the right color. So, but my question is, or statement is that there is adjacent to or facing this building and all of the buildings that are being developed on Germantown Avenue, a whole community. My house is back there, there's Alina Street, there's Price Street, there's Rittenhouse Street, and And that community is just as blighted as the Y that you're talking about developing. No one has reached out to my neighbors, to my community, to include them in having a piece of this. You know, how can you develop a building, but you cannot develop the pieces that surround it? There's no way that building is going to be safe unless somebody looks at what goes on behind it. We had the largest drug issue when I first moved around here. But any developer, and whoever the developer is, I do believe we should see more folks at the table. But any developer that's coming in that's not looking at the surrounding area is not there to support the development and growth of this community. So I would say, I would ask you, do you have any plans to look at those streets and look at those folks who live back there? When Fulton was there, we have 2,200 abandoned properties in this Germantown area. Why don't we do something about that? So what's your plan?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm a somewhat new Philadelphian.
Oh, they don't.
It's a good question. As we've talked about, the tax credit is a very limited resource. We currently are proposing, and there's a round that's going on in February, we are doing a similar development in the community in the Haddington area of Philadelphia with a group called Achievability, that's part of the Mission First Housing Group, where we're taking row homes and throughout the community and rehabbing them. So we do have experience doing that. We've done that up near Temple University on North 16th Street, it used to be Moore Avenue. We've done developments up there. So we have worked in communities. What was in front of us now was the proposal from the redevelopment authority, and that's what we responded to. But it's a fair question. It's not student housing, it's actually affordable housing.
Next question or comment?
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm a fairly new Philadelphian, but great admirer of this beautiful city. I have two quick questions and a comment. One for the developer team. Are you planning on using historic preservation tax credits as part of your funding package?
That would be part of the plans on the register. The historic tax credit comes with being on the National Register. It means you have to use a certain materials to make sure it's rehabilitated. The only concern with that is that sometimes the National Park Service regulates the historic tax credit, requires you to keep features of this. So, like the pool would not be something we could keep. So if they required that, we wouldn't use the tax credits. So we'd have to investigate what would be required to keep in building.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned the basement apartments instead of keeping the pool, and I just feel concerned because I feel like that's below the dignity of our seniors in this community.
It's the basement level is above grade, so there's plenty of light. Like we investigated that, and I think the very front of the building doesn't have units in there because I think that there was enough light, so that's fully it's understood. And there's a grade to the street. Rittenhouse Street goes up, so I think that the building so you get the light, and as it goes towards Germantown Avenue, it goes down. So that's why there's no units in the front.
And then just the comment about one of the questions about the independent structural analysis. I think that was a question to confirm that the stabilization will actually be $3 million. And that was why that question was raised, because we want to know that it really is $3 million in an independent analysis, not a city agency coming up with that number.
Yeah, that's fair. And just to be clear, that was not a city agency that came up with that number. That was an independent engineer who came up with that number.
So we're wrapping up the questions, so we don't want to, FunCog has been a great host, so we're just going to take the last question from Yane before we wrap up.
Hi everyone, my name is Yane. I live in Germantown. I've lived on Harvey Street, Wayne Avenue, and I now live in the Pennox area on Queen Lane. One of the things that Councilwoman Bass said that she wanted to hear is what people are interested in seeing in that building and what people are interested in seeing in that corridor. And so I wanted to speak to that. as one individual. Because the Y is what it is and was what it was, I would like that building to be something that has public access. I would like to see at least some portion of the building, and predominantly the first floor, I would imagine, at least to be something that people from the public were able to engage in a way that is reminiscent of what the Y was. As it relates to the corridor in general, and to development, and we talk a lot, we're talking a lot in Germantown about development, and we talk a lot about these buildings and the bones of Germantown, and I think that, and I've said this in other meetings, it's really, really important when we're talking about these buildings that we remember that these buildings serve people and that there are people who are living in this community right now, and that as we develop this community, it is completely possible to use that development process to improve the lives of the people who live here. So we have a community that's very diverse. We have racial diversity and socioeconomic diversity, all kinds of diversity, but included in that is a very poor community, as someone mentioned before. And the people who, on my block I have people who are selling things outside on their lawn and that sell things outside my house on almost a daily basis. I have a friend on Rockland Street who sells used furniture underground. These are people who are entrepreneurs in our community that could be using, that we have all these empty storefronts, all these empty properties, all these things that need development. Their lives can be developed. The blocks that they live on can be developed. Financial stability can be established by making sure that the people who are improving the community are the people who live in the community. So what I really would like to see as development is happening in Germantown is our processes and protocols that are predominantly led by the people who live here and that benefit first and foremost the whole city, yes, but first and foremost the people of Germantown. And so that's just, that's my concern. Develop entrepreneurship from Germantowners, get those Germantowners on the corridor, have the development be led by people who live here. And I appreciate the expertise and the experience of people who are outside of Germantown, but what I really would like to see is those people who don't live in Germantown lending their expertise to the leadership that comes from within the actual community and not driving leadership as people who live nearby but not within the community, not the people who have to live with the results of what is done in this community. So that's my preference. That's what I would like to see.
Thank you. So folks, I want to say again, thank you for everyone for coming out, and a special thanks to FOMCOG. And there's three important things that people brought up when they were speaking tonight that I want you to all remember as you walk away from here. One is that community voice is important. When we heard about this 2 weeks ago, we started planning this meeting because there had been no public forum for the public to have input in this process. If we're to build a better community, there has to continue to be a process of public dialogue, and there can't be plans that are put together, processes that are completed, and that the community is only hearing about them at the end. And so that's why Germantown United put this forum together, because we want to make sure that that opportunity happens for transparency and information sharing. The other thing is coalition building. Before we put this meeting together, we reached out to community groups to co-sponsor this meeting with us because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just us coming together, and that voice and that coalition building is really important. And that's something that we should take away from this as we're moving forward. And then the other thing is planning and public process. My day job is I'm an urban planner, and I do community-supported plans all over the country and all over the city. And it's really important for this community to have a vision and a roadmap moving forward. And in light of that, we've been meeting with G-Town Restoration, with Historic Germantown, and Germantown Community Connection, as well as the Planning Commission, to look at what are opportunities for us to get resources and funding to make a community planning process for Germantown that hits upon all of the issues that you guys have brought up tonight. But before we leave here, I want to make sure that people have a game plan for what's next. That building will continue to stay and deteriorate. It will continue to stay vacant. It will continue to stay blighted. And what are our responsibility as a community to do about that building that has such a great impact on our corridor, and what is our next steps. And one of the things that I want to make sure as a resource that everyone knows, we went through great efforts to make sure, thank you to our volunteers, that this meeting is recorded by video as well as by notes so that we can share that video for folks who were not able to come to the meeting tonight, so that that information is out there. And I really want to reach out to the Councilwoman Cindy Bass as well as the PRA, that when the conversations happen about the next part of the process, that the community has an opportunity to weigh in on that the community has an opportunity to see what the proposals are. Are there any proposals? Brian said that there were no proposals for our town hall. What's the game plan for that building as it sits vacant? We want to be a part of that change. I live in this community. I want to be able to shop here. I want to be able to do everything with my family, go to Vernon Park and do all those things here, and we have to work together to make that community better. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. I am very happy that we are part of this conversation, and we got to get cracking. Don't let things just sit. Got to get some action, move along, and I thank you very much, everyone.